The mythology surrounding INTJs is specific to them in terms of its content, but not in terms of its intensity. The mythology surrounding INFJs is about as intense as that surrounding INTJs. Now, it seems that the mythology surrounding these two NI-dominant types is more pervasive, more intense, more spellbinding for a lot of people than the mythology surrounding other types, even though those mythologies exist. I don't know if there is an ESTJ mythology or if there is an ISFJ mythology. Probably more so an ISFJ mythology. I couldn't think of an ISFJ mythology. An ESTJ mythology probably exists, but is very niche. Now, NI-dominant mythologies, not so niche. This probably to a simple, we have a simple reason to account for that, which is that they're less common types. And when something is less common, almost by some kind of natural reaction process, people are more apt to develop mythologies around them. INTJ and INFJ are two of the rarest types, so that probably should not surprise us very much. But the mythologies of these two types are distinct in their content. It seems to be kind of clear in the INFJ mythology that INFJs usually don't fulfill this wonderful set of gifts that they receive. Talking about a mythology here, okay? But it's kind of admitted that the society in which we live currently, at any rate, is not the kind of society that is made to recognize INFJ gifts, and so that INFJs often either live on the margins or just have pretty, shall we say, unexceptional types of lives or existences that are often portrayed as just not living up to their wonderful potential. Okay. Now that's the mythology of the INFJ. The mythology is particularly in this idea that they are gifted exceptional gifts. Okay. Not to say that the INFJ is not a supremely interesting and unique type, but the idea that they are given these spiritual gifts is a mythology. And in the case of the INTJ, there's a further distortion of the mythology, which is that unlike the INFJ, the INTJ is able to make good on that promise at least much more often. And that, therefore, the sort of more marginalized INTJs, the solitary INTJs that don't make it in the big world, just these INTJs are an exception rather than the rule. And I would actually contend that, if not the rule, they are way more common than we think. The reason why we don't think that, and why the mythology kind of works, first of all, is that INTJs are quite rare, but also INTJs don't reach out to others in the same way that INFJs do. A solipsistic type of INTJ is even more isolated and secluded than a solipsistic INFJ. There's a pretty straightforward reason for that I've touched on before, which is that FE is an intersubjective function. It depends on other subjectivities to even set itself in motion. TE is not an intersubjective function in this way. It's a social function, but only insofar as it has the world at that which it interacts with, the world of things and of these strange entities we call people, agents, right? So they're not quite thingified as people, but they're not interacted with quite as intersubjectively as in the case of FE, simply because it's part of the essence of FE to have this subjective, intersubjective sort of coloring, not nearly as directly prominent in TE. So INTJs will often just not vocalize in the same way. They won't voice these solipsistic often quite misanthropic. Well, we know that a lot of INTJs are misanthropic. But strangely, the link between misanthropy and social exclusion or social isolation is not made obvious. But that's obvious. Misanthropy and anti-solipsism, they go hand in hand. And if you're very misanthropic, you might be a very misanthropic INTJ, you're not going to be like among those INTJs that are the very successful types, right? So there might be exceptions, but overall, if your worldview is very misanthropic, it probably is the expression of a disillusionment with reality. And the reason for this disillusionment starts often with a disillusionment with one's own inability to live up to one's own standards, because the ego ideal of the INTJ is very similar to the ego ideal of the INFJ. And the reason is simple. The ego ideal of the INFJ is principally the offspring of a feeling misunderstood by one's parents in early childhood. Because the parents are almost never anti-dominant. And not only that, but they are, in not being anti-dominant, not only are they apt to make their young children intuit a sense of being misunderstood, but often intuit a sense of being deeply misunderstood, a sense of, yes, my parents love me, but this me is not really who I am. They misunderstand who I am. It's a concerning thought. It's a scary thought for a child that lives in the early years, often in a universe of black and white, of two extremes, what's called a split world. It's true of all anti-dominants. The early life of all anti-dominants, INFJ and INTJ. And so the ego ideal of INTJs often is overblown, and we know. We call them arrogant often. We call them megalomaniac sometimes. Often they're just, again, because the intersubjectivity of the T function is not that present, they're often just more honest about how they view their future, their potential. They're often more honest, less repressed in this regard than INFJs are. Less concerned to have a negative social impact, for that to have a negative social impact. But they kind of speak an NI truth that is there in INFJs too. And because this ego ideal is overinflated, if it's not deflated, if it's not tamed, the INTJ will fall short of those demands and will fall into a sense of disillusions, misanthropy a lot of the time. And who has not encountered these INTJs? They're everywhere. You just have to get to know them a little better to gain their trust, to make more of an effort to gain their trust for them to kind of speak these things, or to let these things be discernible than INFJs, because INFJs have FE and INTJs don't. But ultimately, the threat of the disillusionment of an untamed and unrealized ego ideal is the same in both cases. Guys, give me a like if you enjoyed this video. It helps massively with referencing, costs you nothing, so please do that. Don't forget that you can support me on Patreon. It would help the channel massively, keep the channel going. Could not do this without you. A few bucks a month or a few bucks a year goes a long way toward making a big difference. And the link is below. You get really cool perks like access to our big vault of exclusive Patreon videos, long formats, where I discuss a topic of your choice. The latest one was what would an NI dystopia look like? So that's interesting. So go there if you want access to this nice vault of videos, and also the Discord server, the access to the Discord server. Come interact with me and the others in real time there. It's a really fun place. It keeps growing, so I look forward to seeing you there. And if you want a deeper understanding of the INFJ type, you might know that I'm a bit of an expert on that type. My latest book on it is called The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, the deepest look at the INFJ in the world, finding meaning, purpose, and value as an INFJ. And the prequel, The Ecstatic Soul, the deepest look at the INFJ mind, INFJ consciousness that you'll find on the market. Get both books if you want the deepest understanding possible. Waiting for the upcoming NI book. Okay guys, see you tomorrow. Take care.